Hi, it's Matthew here. Now, before I start the video, I just wanted to put a little caveat in. The video I'm going to show is about how to put together one of these amplifiers, as you probably saw on the thumbnail description. However, when I built the kit, or rather when I put the kit together, there were a couple of parts missing, which meant I couldn't finish it off. But that shouldn't detract from the fact the whole video is about how to put one of these things together. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get across in the video. Anyway, hope you don't mind that little bit, and on with the video. Hello once again, it's Matthew here from Matthewnorthmusic. Thanks for watching my channel, and as ever, if you find the videos I make interesting, be them about electronics, music, technology or whatever, then please hit the subscribe button. It really does help things. And if you really like what I do, please spread the word, share the videos on social media and whatever. Now today I'm in the shed, and you might notice the shed looks a little bit different. It's almost like I've got twice as much room, and that's because I have. I've got a new desk here, and it means I've got loads of space, and a load of the stuff that was in here, projects I didn't finish or projects that I'm going to finish, I've put away to be stored, and I'll do them one at a time. But it means I've actually got room to do stuff now, because otherwise I'd be stuck. I've actually made a video about rearranging the shed, which I'll probably upload at some point. Anyway, what I'm going to do today is these things. Now, I think probably lockdown time, I bought one of these ages ago, and I decided to actually put it together, and by doing so it kind of got me interested in, you know, going back to doing more interesting electronics really. But I thought I'd do a video about this because I've been asked many times, you know, is there a way of building something with valves as a first time project where you're not going to get electrocuted because the voltages are so high, but can actually be functional? And I think these kits tick all the boxes. Now, they're not really an amp as such, but they're more like a buffer, because the level doesn't go up much higher, but the signal does go through the valves. There are some other sort of transistors and things on here, but they're actually to do with the upping the voltage and powering everything. But no, this basically is what it is. It's a little preamp. It's got two valves in it. It does have some LEDs inside as well, and they light up even brighter with the LEDs, but I don't particularly like them, and I'm not going to put them in on the one I'm going to build. But I'm going to take you through building one of these kits, and, you know, hopefully it'll act as a reference, if nothing else, so that you can have a go at building one yourself. Okay, well, I've got a kit of parts here. Now, this actually came from a friend of mine who bought a load of electronic stuff because he was going to build pedals during lockdown and never got round to it. So I bought all his components and all his PCBs and everything, and I've made up quite a few of his pedals. In fact, there's one here. This is one of the this is a PT399 delay pedal. I designed it. electricfx.com. It's actually quite a decent delay on it actually, and this was actually quite handy when I was building these. This is the Look Mum No Computer multi-delay thing, splashback echo, and that uses PT2399s as well. The problem is a lot of those chips, you buy them from China in like a pack of 20, half of them don't work. So actually, by having a pedal like this, or a unit like this lying around the bench, I can actually just use it for testing chips. I think what I might do is have this as a chip tester, and I could use it as a pedal as well, but what I might do is stick like a dual inline sort of ZIF socket there, so for easy removal of the chips, so I can test them. But anyway, here we've got the kit. Now obviously it's been opened, and I'm hoping all the parts are here. If they're not, then hopefully I'll have bits around to be able to put it back together. There's not a huge amount in it. We've got some various resistors, diodes, chips. There's a knob for the volume control, valve bases, capacitors, valves, and some phono sockets and some standoffs. Now, here is the printed circuit board, and it's in blue, and it does have all the part numbers labelled on the printed circuit board. So you don't actually need a circuit diagram. You can literally just follow the components and put it all together, and hopefully you should end up with something like this, which runs on 12 volt AC. And if I plug it in, as I have some 12 volt electricity here, then it should light up. You see there, you know, it sort of lights up. And actually, you know, it looks quite good with the LEDs in. Maybe I might put the LEDs in. I'm not sure yet, but I'd rather see actual glowing filaments than something like that, which, you know, kind of looks a little bit cheap maybe. But you know, it's functional. It's got an on-off switch there, and it turns on, and then off it goes and does its thing. The first thing then is I'm going to organise our parts. I'm going to put these in order of when they're going to go in. So things like the valve bases, the sockets, the on-off switch and volume control, the power socket, all that stuff will go in last. Then we'll put in the big capacitors, of which there should be 6, I think. Yep, there's 6 there. And then we're left with diodes, resistors, and the LEDs. There's one LED there. I think it's the other one there. Maybe we've only got one LED. Maybe the other one was lost. That's quite possible. And so what we do first is we're going to put the smallest components in first. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the resistors in. Now if you can't read resistor colour codes, you don't need to worry if you've got a multimeter. Now here is a very cheap multimeter, and even though you can get these for less than a tenner on Amazon, it will still give you what you need to know. So if we turn this around to say 200k ohms, then we can take our resistors and we can measure them. So there's 2 here, and I think it's either 1k or 10k. I can't quite see. That's 100k. Anyhow, for this I'm going to use my trusty multimeter here. This was actually only about £20, and it works fine. You just set it to resistance, plonk it on there, and there we go. We've got our 1k resistors there, and this is red, orange, yellow, so I think this is 100k. Yep, close enough. So there's 1k, 100k, and we've got these resistors here. I think these must be the 4.7k resistors, but we'll just measure to be sure. The purple band, so it makes you think 4.5. Yes, that's our 4.7k resistors. So from that we can pop them into the board because they are all numbered. Right, so let's pop them in. So we'll do the 4.7ks first, only because there's more of them than there are of any other value. And I tend to put them in with if they're going horizontal, I always have the tolerance band, which is usually gold or silver, to the left. And so it's a 4.7k there. There are actually some other resistor values here, but we don't have the resistors, so I'm going to have to get them out of the box. But we'll do that in a sec. Then we've got another one here. 4.7k. So we've actually also got 200 ohm, 470k, and a few others. Right, let's find the next one. 4.7k there. And there's one above it. Oh, I actually put that one around the wrong way. I'll just for neatness, I'm going to take that one out and swap it around. Just because I want it to be neat. That's in there. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put all the other resistors in. But as I say, I tend to do them in order of the value of them. Now there should be some other 4.7Ks somewhere. There's 2 here. There's that one there. And then there's one next to it. Where's my other 4.7k resistor? Oh, there we go, it's there. Yep. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, now they're all in, we will solder them in. And we do this by... Now, you could use one of these things. Now, these are very good. If you don't have one, it doesn't matter, because you can lay it flat on the bench and it should be okay. But you can plonk one of these inside here, like that. And then once you've got your components inside, you can just flip it over and do the soldering. The only snag is they do tend to sometimes hang out of the board. I don't know if you can see, but they're sort of hanging, which is why if you do that, you sort of got to push them up again and just bend the legs slightly so they don't hang. But it's not a huge problem. In fact, you only need to bend one really, then lift the other up. Hope it doesn't fall down. But as I say, I think for this, I'm just going to plonk this on the bench like that, where everything is flat, and then hopefully nothing will be sticking up. So grab some solder, put on the fume extractor, and then we can start soldering. Okay, let's pop that in there. It's always good to have a fume extractor, especially when you're using old leaded solder like this. You know, a lot of people say, oh, it's too dangerous, but the thing with leaded solder is it just makes a really good job. But, you know, I've got the extractor here, I've got the window open, so everything should be okay. Right then, resistors are all in, and I actually had to have 4 47 ohm resistors, and I looked in my stock and I found 4 47 ohm resistors, and there were only 4, so they must have originally come from this kit and they've got put into stock. Next thing are the diodes, which are these things here. Now there's a few of these. They're 1N4007, so they're quite heavy duty diodes, and here on the thing you can see the little line marks on there, and that tallies with the edge of the diode, so we can easily pop those in and solder them in, which is what I'll do now. Right, now they're in, we've got a couple of decoupling capacitors that are 1 microfarad non-polarized, and they're these little ones here, so that goes in there, and then that one will go in there. So again, we have to bend the legs on the back, stretch them a little bit, and we'll just solder those in. Okay, next we're going to pop in some transistors, and this is where we've got a problem because we've actually got 2 missing. So I'm going to see if I've got replacements. If not, we might have a problem. And I've also put that big resistor in, by the way. Now, if we look at my finished kit, we've got these decoupling capacitors here. Now, I don't have any of these. I don't know where they've gone, but these are 1 microfarad. Now, that seems a little bit high in value for this kind of circuit, because you usually generally use one sort of half that size in sort of guitar amps and things, but maybe they're using 1 microfarad to get more low frequency through. I'm not sure of their thinking, but I don't actually have any of these, so I'm gonna have to get some and put them in. Actually, I'm just doing some research, and I've just found another one of these boards here, and it's actually got those smaller caps, so they probably were the actual caps for this board. If we think about the electrolytic capacitors now they go here, 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 and here, and they've all got these lines here, these horizontal lines, and that's to indicate the negative side of the capacitor, because it's got this line here, and also there's a little plus sign there. And also with capacitors, the legs are such that the longest leg here is actually the positive. So if we look at these here, they're both, I think, 470. Yeah, 470s here, so pop that one in there. And I've got another 470 here, I think. Yeah, pop that one in next to it. And I'll get those soldered in, and then we'll work our way around the board. Okay, we're almost on the home straight on this, but I'm going to tell you this is not going to work, because I actually do need all 4 transistors to do this little job, and I haven't got the other 2, so I'm going to have to order them and put them in. I'm also missing a capacitor. So the next thing we're going to do is the DC socket. Now this sits on the end here, and you just push that in there like so. Oh, hang on, it goes that way. So it goes that way, and then all we've got to do is solder that in. Now, I tend to sort of hold this upside down. I mean, you could stick a bit of blue tack to hold it in place. That's probably not a bad idea. It's the sort of thing Mend It Mark would do. And then we solder in the other terminals. There we go, and that's in place. That gives us our AC to power the board. Now, all we've got left is our on-off volume control, which is here. Again, we should just check the pins, because sometimes they can bend, but no, they will look good. So we're going to pop that in place. And again, I'm just going to hold that like this, and then put one bit of solder in one corner, and another bit in the other corner, and that's now in place. And then it's much easier that you can then just solder in the other wires, or the other pins rather. Okay, that's in, and in fact, we can actually pop the little knob back on, because we don't have a case for this one, so we're going to pop that in. Now, once we've got this in, the next thing to do really, I suppose, is the valve bases. Now, I mentioned before, in there's a little hot space for the LED, which looks like this, and it does have the polarity marked with the plus at the bottom. Now, like capacitors, the positive side of the LED is the one with the longest leg. Now, sometimes it might have a square and a circle, and the square you would think would be the positive, but it's actually the negative in some circuits, so it's worth checking. But if you were to put the LED in, then you pop it in like that and then solder it in. But I'm not going to do that because I don't want to have an LED in this. However, if you pop the, very carefully put the valve base in place, you may just be able to see, you can actually get the LED in there in the middle. So if you decide you want to put the LED in, you can put it in afterwards. Now, to solder this in, again, I'm going to turn this over, but what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to slightly bend inwards the legs of a couple of the, oh, it's just fallen out. That didn't work very well. Now I've got bent legs. It's actually quite loose, this. There we go. That's back in place, yeah. So what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to bend the legs, as long as they're not touching anything else, and then that way it should stay in place a bit easier. Now, some of these legs don't actually go on any tracks because they're unused pins, so those I'm not going to bend too far because I don't want them touching anything they shouldn't do. But the ones that either have circuit board or and that one there actually as well, you can see that they're all in place, and actually the valve base stays in place, and that just makes it mechanically much stronger. And also this is going to have an element of heat, so I'm going to solder that in, and then I'm going to do the same for the other valve base. And you actually need quite a bit of solder on this because it does take quite a lot, because obviously you've got fairly large metal pins and a much larger hole, so it's more than soldering in a resistor or a capacitor. But slowly we get this in, just keeping an eye that there's no nothing spreading. Check those. Yep, they're all in. And there's our valve bases in place. Now, the one last thing to do are the phono sockets. Now, these are, mine's actually got broken unfortunately there, but it shouldn't make too much of a difference because there's these little tabs that actually keep them in place. But yeah, as I said, because this kit's been sloshed about a bit, it's not quite complete and it's a little bit knocked. Just straighten those pins up a bit and see if we can get that in now. Right, go in, yeah, so that's in place now. Again, if you just lay it on the ground and hold the board down, so hold it down like that, it should be flush with the board. And if the plastic clips are still working, then they will be holding it in place. So again, let's get one pin in. There we go, and get the other corner in. Right, and then we can just solder the other two. It's one side of the board in, and now we will pop the other in. And as you see, this one has got the two plastic clips, so it actually stays in place, which is much better. Now get that soldered in. And that is our board now complete. In fact, we could just for fun pop the valves in. Actually, this has got some bent pins. So another thing with valve bases, actually, which is something I've completely forgotten about until doing this, which is how you should probably do it, is to actually put the valve in the base first before you solder it, and then that way you know the pins are all going to meet snugly. As it is, these have all gone slightly inwards, so you've got to be very careful when bending them because you don't want to break anything. So I've now got them all going slightly outwards, but they should fit now, and I think they will. So there's valve number 1, the 6J1, and again, this valve here, it's got pins bent inwards, probably because it's been in various boxes and bags and whatnot. Just check as you push it, make sure you're not causing any damage. And that is our almost complete preamplifier. And you know, I would say as a kit that's very easy to assemble, and I would certainly recommend this for anybody that's going to get into electronics. You know, the finished thing, I've just taken it out of the case actually because I want to have a closer look at something. But yeah, it's all good. And interestingly, the capacitors on here are smaller than these, but I think these are 50 volts and these are the 35 that it recommends. But yeah, the decoupling capacitors are going to vary, and as I said, I've put some little 1 microfarad square box ones on there, and we've got these sort of larger ones here, but you know, it doesn't really matter because it's only a maximum of about 35 volts going through them, and they're perfectly adequate for that. So yeah, that's it really. And this is what the valves look like glowing in the dark. Now, one last thing we can do is we've got these little standoffs. So we've got like a little screw there, and I'm guessing what they want you to do is to pop the screw in there and then put the little standoff on, with the idea that when you put it on a table or a bench or wherever you're going to use this, if you're not going to have it in the case, then you can at least mount it to something, you know, something solid, like you might put it in a metal case or something. But you know, it's quite nice to have the little standoffs because, you know, it means if this goes on something metal, for example, then that would be a bad idea because you would short circuit everything. So if you're going to stick this on top of your hi-fi amp or your CD player or something, then by having this standing up like that, then it's going to be nice and safe. Now obviously if you want to build one of these, as I say, you can get these very cheap. They're about £10 on Amazon, and you can get one of those little plastic cases, and they're another sort of £2 or £3. So they're really cheap to build. You will need an AC power supply, like a plug in the wall job. And I think you need one that probably delivers half an amp, something in that order, maybe even a 1 amp one. But they're generally quite chunky anyway. And then you just use it as a preamp. So you've got stereo input, stereo output, so you can plug in like a CD player or something. And the idea of these little buffer preamps is that they give you a warmer sound. Now, if you want to know whether these sound good or not, there are loads of videos about these on YouTube. I'm not going to do a demonstration video, there's no point. But anyway, I hope you found the way I've assembled this useful. It's sad really that I couldn't finish it off because those bits missing, but you know, you get the idea, and that's the whole point. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Catch you on the next one.